Francis Veri of Pennsylvania and Michael Jamanis of New Hampshire, met when they were scholarship students of James Friskin at the Juilliard School. And you know what? Today they are among the great two piano teams in the world. How are you doing? You know, I haven't seen both of you for a long time, since the days of Juilliard.
Well, we've grown a little bit older. Maybe a little bit wiser.
You both look great, and I must say that in this period, when a lot of people hit the dirt musically, so to speak, or gave up the piano, you two have made an enormous career. You play everywhere, and you're loved.
Well, thank you, David. We feel that we had one another to lean on.
Yes,
Making it as a solo pianist, sometimes there's a lot of grief, a lot of loneliness, and perhaps the mere fact that we have gotten together, not only as a marriage, but as good friends.
Yes.
It's so important.
Well, Francis, that's everything. Beside being married, you have to be good friends, because the give and take of two pianos is so difficult.
I think when you think of working together in an ensemble, a small ensemble, there's such a closeness. You almost say you have to consider the friendship, consider the compatibility, sometimes before even the musical qualities.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever think, when you were studying at Juilliard, not married yet, of course, that you would be playing all over the world, a whole repertory that you really weren't studying at that moment necessarily? You probably thought you'd be the next Horowitz or Myra Hess, right?
Oh, I think every student who goes to a school like Juilliard thinks that. And to be perfectly honest with you, no, we weren't really as concerned with touring the world as we were concerned with getting together and getting married. I guess that was more important to us at that point. But once we settled down, we decided, two separate careers would just take us in two different directions. And in this respect, we've been together, and it is a beautiful medium.
Yes, two pianos
really is
not only beautiful, it is also it's kingly, it's grand. And,
yes, it's probably the closest thing in presenting a concert to approaching the orchestral sound.
Mm-hmm.
There are many places that we play. I'm not speaking necessarily of New York City and the major cities where you can go hear most anything you'd want, but there are many parts of the country where they really can't have orchestral concerts. And you go there and you give a two-piano concert, and they think the sound is marvelous. They tell us, you sound like a symphony orchestra.
And Michael, it's so dramatic. Two pianos on a stage really has a look about it.
Mm-hmm. I think you almost feel like conductor and performer all rolled into one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's magnificent to experience what you can do with 176 keys.
But tell me, what happens when you are, for instance, in a small town in Wyoming or South Dakota? Can you always get two good pianos that match?
Well, we have always brought our own instruments.
You travel?
We traveled, and we just...
That's the Grand Manor.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no, it's the Grand. It's 2 grands we take.
No.
But that's for the smaller towns, and when we have a consecutive tour. Yes, we take them along.
Oh, yes,
with us.
and we take them with us, and we usually do about 9,000 miles, setting up, knocking down, and playing the performance and moving on, and it's worked out. Because, like you say, you can't find two matching instruments. You really have to bring them along.
Oh, this is fantastic. So they're 2 full concert grands?
No, they're 7-footers.
That's enough.
But we always feel that the 7-footers have a certain balance to them. The 9-foot pianos, you have a bigger bass.
Yeah.
And we feel 14 feet of instrument is enough.
Mm-hmm. Sure is. So Jack Roman is always probably helpful at Baldwin, your Baldwin artist.
Baldwin artist,
Extremely helpful. And the pianos that we have.
Beautiful.
I think this is the 3rd set that we've been touring with.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, each set we've hesitated to turn in because you grow accustomed to them. But each set has become more beautiful.
Yeah, they've been able to perfect them, and what is interesting, the set that we have, we didn't realize was on its way to our house while we were in Conway, Arkansas, looking for the first time last year, at how the grand pianos were being made.
Mm-hmm.
And they are made, I'm amazed, almost handcrafted.
Yes.
And I think this kind of American piano company should
Yes.
keep going.
Oh yes, well it's a committed company, and Jack Roman is a committed man. That's for sure.
Well, he is unusual in the field. He's a wonderful person.
Well, you are here in town not that frequently because you're constantly playing, and one of the reasons you're here is that within days you will be with those 14 feet of piano, the Grand Manner, January 17th, 1984, 8 o'clock, Alice Tully Hall, and you are doing what?
Oh, we're doing an old Gershwin program. We're going to open with the variations on I've Got Rhythm for the two pianos. And we're going to do the two-piano version of the American in Paris. And I think a real first for, I don't know what anniversary it will be, but as I understand it, we will be the first ones to do the Concerto in F for two pianos, and the last one to have done it in New York City in that form was George Gershwin himself. And I can't tell you the year, but I understand that that is so.
George was some pianist. Everyone says that. Did you know, as you were growing up in your respective states, New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, that Gershwin would loom large in your lives?
No.
Absolutely
It's
not.
very ironic when you bring up the name Gershwin to a student who is interested in playing Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, Liszt. You have a tendency of overlooking something that is very close and very fine. And but once you start on the road of investigating this very talented genius, you find what a great wealth of material and a natural composer he was.
Yes.
It's all there, right on the surface.
I'd like to start our musical portion of the program with part of that celebrated songbook of his, where he had 18 or so songs, everything from Swanee to Fascinating Rhythm. You have one of the finest sets of Gershwin playing I have ever heard, and not only has it been a wonderful seller, and we'll talk about the recording in a minute, but it's performances that have such, how could I say it, Gershwinian flair.
Oh, thank you.
When you hear them, you know it's the real thing. Let's start, if you don't mind. I thought it would be nice to start from that songbook and hear both of you in Swanee and then in Who Cares. Each is no more than a minute. Let's do that. And I don't know that you're playing these on January 17th at 8 o'clock, but we're going to hear two of them now. My guests today, Veri and Jamanis, wonderful duo pianists. You just heard two songs, Swanee and Who Cares, from the George Gershwin songbook, played by the duo pianists Veri and Jamanis, who will be playing very shortly, not too many days now. Will you stay here for just a minute while we have a commercial message, and we'll be back and talk about your careers, two pianos, or whatever you feel like.
Fine.
My guests today, Francis Veri and Michael Jamanis, and it's so good to see both of you again. It's been a long time, and you are what I call the survivors, because you have to be very clever to stay in music and keep the career going. And you found not only both of yourselves, you were in love at first sight at Juilliard, I remember that, but you now make love on the stage in a wonderful repertory of two-piano music. What else do you usually play on your program? Certainly you can't just play Gershwin all over the world.
Well, we have done a lot of Gershwin programs, but we have the so-called traditional repertoire, the Brahms Haydn variations, the Mozart sonatas. We have the complete Rachmaninoff. We've done the two suites. They're gorgeous.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
oh, yes.
You know them. And the symphonic dances, and the Opus 11, the one piano, four hands of Rachmaninoff.
Mm-hmm.
And we have found that to be a very delightful program. I kind of used to think that for every Beethoven sonata that I had when I was a student, I had a program. I used to always build my programs around a Beethoven sonata. And I say, well, for every major work like a major Rachmaninoff work, you have a two-piano program, or you take something like the Brahms Haydn variations. That is another program. A lot of people think that we're limited in our two-piano repertoire, and it simply isn't so.
Oh, it's gigantic.
It's a gigantic repertoire. In fact, I think that a lot of the public has not even been made aware of some of the marvelous pieces that we have waiting for us.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that we don't get to hear it. I know that you were interested in trying to get that as a major instrument concept at Peabody once, right?
Well, we had introduced the idea that it would be awfully nice to see this medium of ours, the two-piano medium, seriously taken. How often do we have people consider us, well, you must be like Franti and Teicher, although they're classically trained, but however their type of music is not quite the classically strict type of original music that we're trying to present. And what we thought would be an awfully wonderful thing in this day and age where things are a little bit freer, people are accepting new ideas, wouldn't it be marvelous to have an institution take the responsibility of considering and perhaps promoting and building a curriculum around this particular kind of performance, the performing on two pianos. I think the idea of leaving this only for someone who might have a very slight knowledge of the field, but to get into it as far as the literature, the practices, the enormous problems encountered with balance and in voicing with the two instruments.
Well, I know you both studied with the famous composer Robert Starr.
Oh, he was our first ensemble teacher, and a marvelous man. We learned a lot from him. I guess what we're trying to say is we should be made a little bit more legitimate.
Yes,
our field.
I think people don't understand that if you look at Clementi's output, there's something there for two pianos, or Moscheles, or I was seeing recently a score by Mrs. H.H.A. Beach, an American composer coming into her own. There was a work for two pianos, variations on a Balkan theme, a major work that she also orchestrated and also is in piano solo. If you want to look at Liszt, he transcribed
the tone poems.
The tone poems, like Preludes, sounds wonderful on the two pianos.
The 11 Legends of Dvorak are beautiful. There's even an overture by Mendelssohn for 2 pianos.
And if you want to, of course, you could leave one piano there for a while and play 4 hands.
Yes.
And I'm sure you probably have done it occasionally.
We've done that.
Yeah. So are you excited about the Tully Hall coming up?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's... Well, first of all, Tully Hall's always delightful to play in. It's just kind of a good feeling. The acoustics are marvelous, and it's really a beautiful place.
Now, this is the first time the complete repertoire for piano and duo piano has been presented at Tully Hall.
Yes.
And I know that the first one was in last October, and this one will be 8 o'clock. And what day is that? 17th.
January 17th.
I think it's a Tuesday.
Well,
Tuesday
we should
evening,
know
the
that.
17th.
Yes,
It is a Tuesday.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Because
Anyway, we'll be there on Tuesday evening, January 17th.
well, I hope our audience will be also, because I know that the October one was sold out, and you're really exciting pianists, and I know that from my own experience with you. So we are talking about many things. Gershwin. Wouldn't you want some more Gershwin music?
Oh, there is always more Gershwin music.
Really?
Yes. There are many things that haven't been used, and they've been kept in files. And of course, the untimely death of George Gershwin at the age of 38. I think a lot of things are still to come out. And of course, we've been fortunate enough to have received of late a few nice things. One was called, I forget, it was Melody 103.
Melody 103, which Ira Gershwin, after George's death, went through a lot of his music which had not been published, and we received one of those pieces for the October concert. And Ira named it "I Want Somebody," and it's a charming little rag.
And what is it? What does Melody 103 mean?
Well, George Gershwin used to keep a tune book, like many of the composers, and he used to mark GT for a good tune. And he would use it later on, perhaps in some of his
shows or
works.
develop them into one of his concert pieces.
What he accomplished in that short time.
It's amazing. And he started keeping that tune book really as a teenager. When you consider George Gershwin was a high school dropout, and here he was with this kind of an organized mind. This is not the typical high school dropout who did this.
Well, I don't think being in or out of high school had anything to do with it.
No, I don't think it had a thing to do with it.
He was always creating in his mind and always wanting to learn, which was a marvelous thing.
Well,
always wanting to study.
I don't know if you're playing it on this program or if it was already on October, but from your recordings, I would love to hear "I Got Rhythm," the variations for piano.
That will be played on January 17th.
Oh, goody,
Yes.
goody. Well, my guests today, Francis Veri and Michael Jamanis, are now going to play from their recording the "I Got Rhythm" variations. You have just heard the great two-piano version of I Got Rhythm, the variations that Gershwin wrote for the 10th anniversary, I'm told, by Michael, of his Rhapsody in Blue, and he played it all over. And he was who played it with him?
Well, no, he did this. He did this with the orchestra,
the piano and orchestra version.
Piano and orchestra
Yes.
version, and he took it on. I think it was a 27,000-mile tour. Was it?
It was a
huge tour.
It was a huge tour.
And he remarked about coming off the train one day and someone coming up to who was the singer that was with him at that time?
A famous
Kay,
tenor.
someone?
No. A man, a famous tenor.
Mel.
James Melton. James Melton,
right.
of course.
And someone came up to him.
This was in Chicago at
threw
in
her
the train
arms
station.
around the singer and said, "Mr. Gershwin, I've been waiting to see you for such a long time."
And of course it was James Melton.
which says George felt, well, gee, you know, I'm not as well known as I thought I was.
Yes, that's wonderful. Someone came up to me yesterday on 6th Avenue and asked for my autograph, except that they thought I was a rock singer called, oh my God, I'm blocking him out because this happens constantly at banks, wherever, if I'm in an airport, people come up to, I'll think about it because we have a message to have right now and we'll be right back, but I'm supposed to be someone and I sign his autograph. It's Neil Diamond.
Oh!
I'll be right back after this message. It's David Dubal, and my guests, Gershwin Face to Face is the name of their program, and they'll be playing it Tuesday, the 17th of January at Tully Hall, Francis Veri and Michael Jamanis. And I know that I've seen your names on a book. Now, what book is that? Isn't that in that collaboration? Gershwin, the Gershwin years?
No, you might have seen our name as on the back of the Encyclopedia of Music.
Yes.
The American Encyclopedia.
The American Encyclopedia by Ed Jablonsky.
Yes.
And we're very pleased to be in such good company as William Schumann and Morton Gould and the rest, and we're giving comments on that. We haven't written our book yet.
Now, you're going to do a Gershwin book, I hope.
Oh, who knows? I think we better leave that in the hands of Ed Jablonsky. He did such a great one. And perhaps that's why you're saying, did we collaborate?
Yes.
We have worked very closely with him, and he did write the Gershwin years.
That's it.
And
Yes.
that's where you got that idea. And it was his encyclopedia on American music that we had endorsed.
But we had collaborated with a television show. He had written the script for the show that we had done for PBS some years ago.
Can we say a word, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind, about your recording, which is one of the absolute all-time wonderments? It has sold a fantastic amount of recordings, and well, it should be. It's the Classics Record Library, right?
Right.
Yes.
And it's the Book of the Month records. Now, where do you get these? Because people have asked me in the past.
Well, it's only through the Book of the Month Club, and although you don't have to be a member, you can write directly to the club, and without being a member, you can purchase the records. They have a special division now, the record division, and I think that's a separate thing.
Well, it's a phenomenal 3-record set, I believe, right?
Yes, it's a 3-record set.
It has on it the Concerto in F, the Rhapsody in Blue, the piano introduction to Porgy and Bess, the I Got Rhythm we just heard, the Cuban Overture, which we will hear a little later, all of the songbook, the second Rhapsody, which was at first titled the Rhapsody in Rivets, I think,
Yes.
and the world-famous 3 Preludes, which we are going to hear now, if you don't mind, in your own performance.
Yeah.
My guests today, Francis Veri and Michael Jamanis, who will be playing the Preludes by any chance?
I will.
The solo version.
Yes.
And we are hearing the solo version now?
Yes, this is the solo and only version.
That's right. The only actual solo piano pieces he wrote, right?
No.
Outside of the songbook?
No, he has written a lot. He has one called the Rialto Ripples, one of his very first published ones, I think when he was 18. And we have some other ones that have come out. And also there's an impromptu.
Impromptu.
Well, there's much more than I knew of.
Yeah.
There's the 3/4 blues.
3/4 blues. These are going to be included on our program January 17th.
So, in some cases, you will be playing solo
Yes.
piano.
Yes,
Yes.
we will
And
be doing some
we
solo.
now then hear from the recordings your performance, Michael Jamanis, of the Preludes 1, 2, and 3. That gorgeous, slow middle one is just wonderful. Let's hear Michael Jamanis. glorious performance of the three Preludes by, in this case, not the duo piano team that is sitting in front of me, Veri and Jamanis, but Michael himself here playing the solo Preludes of Gershwin, and they're wonderful.
They're beautiful classical pieces, aren't they?
Yes. We're going to be back right after this message, and we'll continue our discussion. This is David Dubal, and my guests today, the duo piano team, Francis Veri and Michael Jamanis. I am sure that wherever you go, if it be Lynchburg, Virginia, or Arkansas, or wherever, you're interviewed frequently, and people are curious about you as people that are also married and get along. You are always together. You practice together. You have a child. Is it an intense existence emotionally?
Oh, I think in our case, we kind of have a very relaxing situation. I think our career, the career of a performing musician, is a very intense situation. And the fact that we have each other, we have our own built-in support group.
That's nice.
I feel we also have our separate things that we do. Franny enjoys being in the kitchen. And many times I will go in and say, well, that's not going to help the piano. But she's a good cook and she loves it. And I love her being in the kitchen, too, because I get the results of what's being cooked, But I also I have my own particular thing. I love to read.
And, me too.
Yeah, I love to, and I read the things that I think I've missed when I was in high school. I'm going back to the classics. I've just finished Jean Valjean, Victor Hugo. I've read it before, but not with the same kind of eye that I have now. So. Franny will not open up a book. She'd rather sit at the piano and improvise.
Just a cookbook.
So you love the cookbook and you love the Victor Hugo and the classics. Now, I'm curious about this. Being trained as solo pianists with James Friskin as scholarship students at the Juilliard, do you still practice your Beethoven sonatas, or you get any time for that?
Not as much. However, because we feel that although people say to us, oh, two-piano literature is limited, no, there's so much music that we still feel we have to learn. But we do keep some of the things we've done in the past. And sometimes we have visions of someday saying, well, let's try to come out with programs like all the 15 two-part inventions or the Goldberg variations. But I think those are part of visions that we had in the past, and we have to focus in on what we're doing now.
What about, Francis, the touring? Does that get boring? Is that hard?
Well, the touring has kind of the highs and the lows in it. You have to become an experienced traveler. And that has its good points. You get to see many wonderful things. It can be very boring, but you're doing it for a reason. It's to give the concerts. And if you don't get your, shall I say, your highs from walking out on the stage and presenting the music, the live performance to people, then it would be a horrible experience. But you know that at the end of that 500-mile trip that you're making, there's an audience waiting for you. And now, it's all worth it.
Are they always good audiences?
Well, it's hard to say what is a good audience. I can't think of any better audience, to be honest with you, than something like a New York City audience.
Oh, yes.
They're great.
New York City and the West Coast audience. We always feel in the middle of the country.
They're not demonstrative. But that doesn't mean to say they're not a good audience.
Yes.
Somehow or another you listen all through the concert in certain towns and you say, gee, I don't know if they like this any better than the other piece. And then at the end you get this standing ovation, which you say, I didn't anticipate this.
Yes, that's
They're
wonderful.
not as demonstrative, and you find that perhaps they're not as secure. Perhaps they don't know the literature as much. Your big cities have the best audiences.
I should recall a audience that we had played for several years ago, and they were a good audience in a small community, and it was a very large gathering. And I was amazed at how well disciplined they were, and they didn't applaud during movements, and well behaved and very enthusiastic at the very end. And the next day I went back, moving out the instruments. The chairman of the committee said, "Well, now, how was everything?" I said, "Oh, your audience, you should be complimented." He says, "Oh, well, we try to do a good job in handling our audience." He said, "Do you want to see the list of things that the rules of the concert?" I said, "What do you mean?" So he brought out the sheet of paper which says how to behave at a concert.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just unbelievable. But it was interesting. The first statement was, during the performance, please don't walk around.
Wow. Yes.
So we get all kinds of situations that you adapt to.
Could write a book on that.
Oh,
You
you
really
could.
could.
I do carry
You
a small tape recorder in the car, and I do keep account of all the different things that we've encountered on the road
Oh,
and
that's
experiences.
great.
And she is my navigator. I am the driver, basically, and she navigates me wrong sometimes. I remember in Kansas, we happened to be in a certain line. She says, "Get into this line behind this car." So I did. I never think. She tells me what to do.
As it should be.
Yeah. So
wait,
what happened?
Wait, David. Wait till you hear.
Very, very bad circumstance, because it took us 2 hours to get out of the small community, because we were following a line that eventually ended up into a cemetery, and we
were part of the
observed
funeral procession.
the services, and then left. It took a long time before we got out of that one.
It's not easy. It's not easy to exit a funeral procession carrying 2 pianos behind you.
Oh, it should really have been filmed. Oh, absolutely wonderful. Well, we have to turn to music, and I know you're not playing Gershwin's Cuban Overture on your program, and I thought it would be a great idea then to conclude this program with your performance of the Cuban Overture. January 17th at 8 o'clock, we can all hear you at Alice Tully Hall in 2 piano works of Gershwin. Let's now hear Veri Jamanis in the Cuban Overture by George Gershwin, one of the least known of his works.
Yes.
the Cuban Overture by George Gershwin in the two-piano version, and you heard wonderful duo pianists, Veri and Jamanis. Both of them can be heard January 17th, and it's at 8 o'clock. Please go. It's Tully Hall. You will have a great evening. It's been so good to see my friends again. I haven't seen you in a while, and you are absolutely doing wonderfully with the two-piano team that you are.
Thank you, David. This was very nice.
This is David Dubal. Thank you for listening.